All right, it's another Locked On NFL crossover Thursday. Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. Panthers and Cardinals, 2 1-2 teams playing Sunday afternoon at Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm fine, except for the fact that I have no idea what the team that I covered is at all.
Oh,
like,
you
I have
too?
no idea. I'm hurting. I'm struggling to find a definition of what the Arizona Cardinals are.
Well, we know what their record is. It's the same record of the Carolina Panthers entering this week, where it's it's a big game for both of these teams to get on the right track, where the Cardinals 1-2, Panthers 1-2, different ways they've gotten there. Carolina losing 2 close games in the first 2 weeks against teams that they thought they should have beaten in the Cleveland Browns with a backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. And then week 2 against the Giants team, who was not supposed to be one of the better teams in the NFL this year. And they're off to a 2-1 start after losing on Monday Night Football. In Arizona, great comeback week 2. But after that, there's a bunch of blowouts in week 1 against the 49ers, not the 49ers, but against the Chiefs. And then last week losing to the Rams. So heading into Sunday's matchup, what is the biggest storyline for the Arizona Cardinals as they prepare for the Carolina Panthers?
They have to remember that there's a first half of football, because they haven't shown up for it in the first 3 weeks, which really, Julian, it blows my mind how that's possible. The Cardinals have had a kind of a clunky offseason. They've had a clunky preseason. They've had a clunky start to the season. Now, you could say that it's because it was a murderer's row of the Chiefs in week 1 with something to prove, and then the Raiders, who obviously are better than an 0-3 record, and then the Rams are reigning Super Bowl champs at home. But they've gifted all 3 of those teams 2 scores before waking up and realizing football was being played, which it just kind of blows my mind. So that's the storyline. How it impacts the game is if they can put 4 quarters together, we're going to find out what the Arizona Cardinals team is. I mean, traveling across country, they haven't beat the Panthers since 2013.
It's been that long?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
That includes the massacre in the NFC Championship game. Yeah. Like
2019 in the last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. What the Cardinals need to do, and I know last year was Colt McCoy, but what the Cardinals need to do is wake up and realize that kickoff is the start of the game and not the second half. I mean, that's really it. And I'm making light of it, but that's it. That's the key.
It's wild to me because the Cardinals are typically a team, like you cover them, obviously. They usually get off to really hot starts, and then they fall apart in the second half of the season. Now they can't even get off to a hot start even in the first half. I've seen that they've only scored, 1 first-half touchdown to start off the season. Yep. They haven't scored yet in the first quarter, and they're the only team in the league that's done that. Now, Carolina would be right there with them if the Panthers had not gone out there and gotten a defensive touchdown in the first quarter last week, because other than that, the offense has not done anything. So the biggest storyline for the Panthers heading into this week is very similar to Arizona. It's getting off to a fast start on offense, because they have not done that week 1 against the Browns, where Matt Rule talked about how in the final 35 minutes, they were one of the top 3 offenses in the league. Well, sorry, buddy, they play 60 minutes, so that doesn't really count. And then against the Giants, they were just hanging on as they fumbled on their first 2 possessions on the opening kick and only scored 6 points in that half. And they just have not been good. And a lot of it's fallen on Baker Mayfield. And when are we going to start seeing Baker play like the player that the Carolina Panthers gave up that draft compensation and asked to give back some of his money so he could come here to Carolina? When are they going to start seeing the guy who's supposed to be an upgrade from Sam Darnold? Because really, he's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL through the first 3 weeks of the season. Currently, he's ranked 32nd in the league, which is dead last in total QBR. He's 31st in completion percentage. The only other quarterback he's ahead of who started all 3 games this season is Justin Fields of the Bears, who's looked awful. 28th in passing, 25th in touchdown passes, and is 25th in passer rating. Like, I understand that Baker was not here for OTA's mandatory minicamp, and I put a lot of that on the Browns just being a bunch of knuckleheads and not trying to trade Baker as soon as possible. And also the Panthers brass, like, not meeting whatever their demands were. I'm sure they were probably a little bit absurd, but still, you didn't help yourself. And then to have the sham quarterback competition once he got here, when they spent the entirety of the offseason trying to find a replacement for Sam Darnold. And once they did that, they waited to the final week of the preseason to finally hand him the keys to the number 1 offense, the first team offense. Like, that has held him back. But still, man, those numbers are staggering. And he leads the league also in 7 batted balls at the line of scrimmage, which he's led the league in since he's entered back in 2018. So Baker has to be much better this week and moving forward. I understand the first 3 weeks, trying to gain comfort in that offense behind the offensive line. But now, week 4, you're basically at the quarter pole in the season. You cannot be as bad as you've been the first 3 weeks of the year, especially against an Arizona team whose defense has not really been all that good so far this season.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because Baker, like, if you look at it from like a Monet standpoint, the Browns and the Panthers are kind of built the same offensively. Like, you've got a rushing attack, but it's really one guy instead of two. It should be one where Baker can kind of thrive a little bit more than he has. And you've rattled off the laundry list. DJ Moore is probably the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL. And I feel like every year, especially if you play fantasy football, he always finishes top 12 or top 13. But I don't understand if it's just OTAs, not having the cohesion. But you're right. Like, we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams on Sunday, because this is a defining moment in the season. The first quarter of the season ends on Sunday, and give or take. And a team dropping to 1-3 in their division, that in their respective divisions, is not a death sentence, but it's going to be very difficult to overcome if they want to win the division or make the playoffs.
Yeah, especially for Carolina, their first first 5 games are all at home. Like, they can't go off and start off 1-2 at home, and then they have San Francisco next week. Have no idea what you're going to see from Jimmy Garoppolo, but we know the guy's capable of at least helping that team get to the Super Bowl in an NFC title game. And it's a Cardinals team, like you mentioned, they've dominated Arizona. So, yeah, they got to lean on the run game of Christian McCaffrey, who unfortunately came up on the injury report with a thigh injury. Matt Rule did not have much to report. Said he'll talk more about it on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday, so we have not yet heard from Matt Rule on Thursday. Just to let the people out there wondering. So that could be a concern that McCaffrey's not healthy to go on Sunday afternoon. So 2 offenses that clearly need to figure things out heading on Sunday. Like you said, Alex, going to learn a lot about both of these teams as they try to avoid a 1-3 start. And Arizona's team that was a playoff team last year. Carolina's a team with a coach, I think, like Cliff Kingsbury, who really needs to win this year, or he might not have a job come Black Monday in the NFL in January.
Isn't that funny? And we're going to talk about a lot more through this crossover podcast, but like, they did it different ways. So the Panthers brass gave Matt Rule the Bill Self, you're going to be the head coach forever contract, it seems like. But they give him 7 years?
7 years, like $60 million, yeah.
So which is more outside the box, but not in a good way? What they gave Cliff, the 5-year extension, after the extension starts after this season, or giving Matt Rule like the lump sum lottery winner money 7-year right out the gate without, sight unseen, which you think is more like out of normalcy when it comes to contracts for coaches?
Well, the extension's pretty normal. You look at college and how many, like, the guys get extended for just going to a bowl game. It's like, we've sucked for 2 years. You took us to a 7-5 bowl game season. Like, go ahead. Here's a 7-year deal. Yeah, I mean, Matt Rule, they understood it was going to be a building process. Now, do you need to give him 7 years? Maybe 5 makes a lot more sense. You could look at it either way, because maybe Cliff has actually earned it. But at the end of the day, they're both college coaches. And one of them, Cliff Kingsbury, who really didn't have that much success at all outside of having NFL quarterbacks. And one of them, he said, get out of town. I'd rather have Davis Webb. And that guy plays here in Carolina. So that's an interesting storyline as far as Baker wanting to get revenge once again on Cliff, which he did multiple times back at OU. And then Matt Rule never won a conference championship, never beat a ranked team, but he did show that he was a builder of a program back in college. Has not quite done that yet here in Carolina. Has 1 more year to do it. So 2 guys who, well, at least Matt Rule's probably head back to college. I don't know what's going to happen with Cliff Kingsbury if he does not work out in Arizona. But let's take a look at some of the key matchups here, Alex, after this quick pause here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Cardinals for this Locked On NFL crossover Thursday.
But first, get to talk to you about our friends at BetOnlinenet. The over-under for the Cardinals and Panthers game is 43. I can't find 43 points here. But if you think that the Cardinals in Carolina will score more or less, whatever, BetOnline.net's got you covered. They've been around with us forever. They're your number one spot for all your sports wagering information. They got podcasts. They've got, team matchup information, news, in-depth articles, whatever you need. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including NFL, college, Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Go to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, back here, Locked On NFL crossover Thursday. Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. Panthers, Cardinals, Week 4 matchup at Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte. We're looking at matchups, Alex. These offenses have been terrible. You got to be thinking we're looking at the opposite side of the ball and wondering which offense might be able to get have a better start based off of the defense that you're playing. What are you looking at as far as matchups heading into this game on Sunday afternoon?
I'm already having nightmares about Jeremy Chin, man. Like, so here's the thing. Isaiah Simmons, Jeremy Chin, same draft, 58 spots. I just did the math. I didn't know this offhand. I just looked it up. 58 spots that the last pick of the second round, Jeremy Chin was drafted by the Carolina Panthers. And Jeremy Chin made like nightmare waves for opposing offenses immediately. Like immediately. I think he had one defensive touchdown, if not two, his rookie year. Like I remember, and don't hold me to that, but what
on back-to-back plays. Back-to-back plays
so that's
against
what it
the
was.
Vikings.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was. I do remember that because that was nightmare fuel for Cardinals fans. So Isaiah Simmons, they're still trying to figure out a spot for him. Okay. Jeremy Chin, he makes his own spot. He's that hybrid linebacker safety role that you see Derwin James play. He's definitely a different player than Derwin James. He's big. And like Isaiah Simmons is still kind of a lost third-year player on the defense. What I'm looking for matchup-wise is Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, and scheming around Jeremy Chin and the front seven. Like that's Jeremy Chin is the person I'll be watching all game on Sunday because that's the guy I'm already thinking like that's the guy that the Cardinals have to scheme around. And I'm also curious to see how people defend Kyler Murray with his lack of running the ball so far this season.
Yeah, and Matt Rule brought this up because he faced Kyler Murray multiple times back when he was head coach at Baylor, and Kyler was at OU, and he knows the speed, just talks about his elite speed and how great of an athlete he is, and you really can't necessarily scheme for it. It's part of why they have such fast team defense here on Carolina to be able to go against quarterbacks like Kyler Murray. And it's interesting that you bring up Isaiah Simmons because that is someone on draft night back in 2020 as we were all in lockdown, and that's the only thing we could really watch to get excited about our everyday lives. I was sitting there just banging the table for Carolina to draft Isaiah Simmons. Little did I know the next day they were going to trade up and get a guy in Jeremy Chin who does exactly the same things that we thought Simmons was going to do in the NFL, and he's done it so far at a higher level, at least here in Carolina. So I'm just curious, like, what is like the Cardinals defensive staff doing with this guy? Like, why have they not put him in a position to succeed? Like Phil Snow's done here in Carolina, Phil Snow being the defensive coordinator here for the Carolina Panthers. That's interesting to me, man.
Yeah, well, it is because the thing is like, there's so many connections here. That's right, because the Panthers drafted Derek Brown a pick before Isaiah Simmons in the 2020 draft. Derek Brown was a guy that would have shored up the defensive line for the Cardinals. He's played well, I guess you could say, in Carolina.
It's okay.
Yeah, right. Well, here's the thing. Like, he's played better than Isaiah Simmons. I was stoked I was like, the fanboy in me is like, oh my God, really? With Budda Baker on this deep, like this is going to be fun. And then it hasn't really panned out. There's a couple things you can look at here with the Isaiah Simmons journey, the plight so far. One, Steve Keim hasn't put enough talent on the defensive side of the ball to allow Isaiah Simmons to play one position. So Vance Joseph is really closing his eyes, throwing a dart at a dartboard, saying, let's try him here now. And that's not working. Hassan Reddick has become a cautionary tale in Arizona because he played in four different defensive schemes from his last year in college through his second to last year with the Cardinals. And they finally found him. They moved him outside. They're like, okay, see quarterback, hit quarterback. You're good at that? We forgot. And then he goes to Carolina, has 12 sacks, how many sacks, and now he's getting all his cheese in Philly. They didn't learn from that. And that's what we're witnessing now with the guy who Hassan Reddick would fit in his pocket. Like Hassan Reddick is an undersized pass rusher. He's an absolute baller. Isaiah Simmons was built in a lab and they can't figure it out. I'm like, this is going to happen again. I've just been pounding the table. Move him outside. See quarterback, hit quarterback. One thing. Their pass rush is terrible. Just do it. I know it's a little out of position for him, but to answer your question, long story is they don't know what the hell to do with him.
Which is making me think, since the Panthers staff figured out how to use Hassan Reddick, who had 12 and a half sacks in his final year in Arizona and 11 last year, maybe Isaiah Simmons could be the next reclamation project on the defensive side of the ball if things don't work out for him in Arizona. I know you don't want that, but it makes me excited, especially if Phil Snow's still here, someone who knows how to figure out how to use these defensive weapons. But as far as matchups for me in Carolina, I'm looking at that Cardinals defense, which apparently has not been very good. Currently, they're ranked 31st in expected points added per play, and they're dead last in yards per allowed per play. And the Panthers offense, like we talked about, like the Cardinals, has got off to a slow start. They only have one touchdown in the first half period all year so far. If they're going to start playing well, play against a defense that's been fairly leaky so far. And maybe Baker Mayfield can finally feel comfortable and can get the ball out to guys like DJ Moore. And you talk about how underrated DJ is. So far, he's underrated even on his own team. Yeah. He only has 7 receptions for 88 yards and a touchdown. He got 6 targets on Sunday against the Saints, 1 reception, 2 yards. Like, that's unacceptable. And I know someone put out a stat earlier this week, one of the reporters for The Athletic, Joe Person, about like DJ Moore not getting enough separation. I'm sorry. It's not separation when on multiple occasions on Sunday afternoon, Baker Mayfield was air-mailing the ball when DJ is there open on a corner route. So certainly Baker's going to be a lot better, but I'm looking at hopefully he can be able to find that comfort level going up against a defense that has not been good. And then on the other side of the ball, Panthers defense has been excellent. I think they're going to have much issue trying to defend Kyler Murray. Like, Kyler's obviously fast, but guys like Brian Burns that can run, like Frankie Louva, who's been awesome so far to start off this season at that linebacker position, filling in for Hassan Reddick, who's now in Philadelphia. Then you add in Dante Jackson, who I think he had 2 picks last year against the Cardinals. Like, every time he sees Arizona, dating back to 2019, Dante Jackson has an excellent game. So I'm curious to see how he plays on Sunday, but he does have a neck injury, so he may be limited, might not play at all. Not quite sure yet as far as the injury update goes there. So those are certainly matchups I'm looking for the Carolina Panthers to get off to a fast start against a defense that has not been really good. And then for this defense that's fast and physical to go out there and to cause some sort of havoc on Sunday against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I've been a Vance Joseph, like I'm his campaign manager.
Oh, okay.
Because I think Vance Joseph has done a masterful job. Not perfect, but he's done a masterful job with what's been handed to him on the defensive side of the ball since he's taken over as the DC. With a head coach that doesn't know where the defensive locker room is, he's pretty much the head coach of half the football team. And Chandler Jones goes out in 2020, the pass rush gets better. Last year, the defense was pretty good. It wasn't great. A lot of injuries and a lot of rookies having to play positions that they shouldn't be playing so early into their tenure in the NFL. This year, Vance Joseph is going to be looked at as the scapegoat if things go wrong. I've said it since June, but Steve Keim hasn't done anything for the defense, and he's done everything for the offense. The offense is supposed to be the strength, and they haven't been so far. To get to your point of the defense not being very good, I agree, and they've played a lot better the last 6 quarters. They held the Raiders to 3 points in the second half in overtime, and they held the Rams to, even though there were a couple of dropped touchdown passes, to an average game for a much better offense than what we saw. All they have to do is set the table for the offense. They've got to force 3 and outs sometimes. They can't be long sustained drives. Cardinals can't go down 2 scores, but also the offense has to do their job. So it really is a give and take tug of war between the two. I wouldn't put it solely on the defense.
Yeah, and Arizona's played a ton of plays. Like we had 81 plays last week for only 12 points, which is just insane. The Panthers have had the fewest amount of plays. I think they're 3rd fewest in the league. Now I look at the top 3 in the league. Like the Cardinals are in there, and those teams are all 1 and 2. And then there's 2 teams ahead of Carolina in Baltimore and Philadelphia that have played 1 more offensive play, and they're both 3-0. Or one of them's 2. I think it's actually Baltimore, Miami. Miami's 3-0. Baltimore's 2-1. So I don't really know if there's a correlation. But I will say though, Carolina has oftentimes lost the time of possession battle because their offense has not been able to sustain drives. So if Arizona's going out there and having the 19, 16, and 17 play drives that they had a week ago, that might be into their favor on Sunday afternoon, especially if they can wear down this defense. I don't think this defense is going to be out there that long, but offensively, very curious to see if the Panthers offense can stay on the field because that could be a factor late in the 4th quarter, as we saw a year ago when this offense could not sustain the drives. And they're 30th in the league right now in 3rd down conversion percentage at 27%. It's been terrible. If they can't sustain drives, it's possible they get worn down by a Cardinals running attack that might not be that physical, but certainly can wear you down over the course of 60 minutes. So we'll see how those matches plan out on Sunday afternoon against the Cardinals and the Panthers. Again, Julian Couts here, Locked On Panthers. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. It is a Locked On NFL crossover Thursday. When we come back, we give it our score predictions. Will the Panthers go 2-2 or drop to 1-3, or the Cardinals figure things out, go to 2-2? We will figure it out here in just a moment on this Locked On NFL crossover Thursday.
But first, Brightco. So Brightco does it right. Okay. Brightco does it right because they want you to go to their website to look at funny videos of people ruining proposals. A lot of it has to do with wind. A lot of it has to do with being on a dock and having a damn ring fall through the dock like dummies. The point is they want you to understand that stuff like that happens and that they're here to help you and give you an easy way to get insurance for jewelry. Okay. Go to bright.co/locked on. It's the fastest and easiest and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jewelry insurance in the business. They're geniuses, okay? It's so easy. You can get insurance 2 minutes on your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on coverage that's super affordable. Bright.co/locked on. We all hate insurance, but for $5 a month, you get totally comprehensive coverage, and it won't take you more than 2 minutes on your cell phone. Check it out, Bright.co/locked on. Go check out the videos also. They're an absolute hoot.
All right, back here, Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday. Julian Council, Locked On Panthers. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Alex, both these teams trying to avoid the dreaded 1-3 start. The Panthers already started off 0-2. Certainly don't want to be 1-3, and we know the numbers for what happens to teams that start off with those kind of records. They typically don't go to the playoffs. Carolina Panthers, only one time in their franchise history have they started off 0-2 and 1-3 and actually made the playoffs. That was back in 13 when Ron Rivera was the head coach here, when a lot of people were yelling for him to get fired. So maybe there's that correlation with Matt Rule in his third season with everyone wanting him to go. But things have been a lot more tame this week after finally winning a game against the Saints. Score predictions. How are you feeling about this game Sunday with the Cardinals and the Panthers? Who you got?
I mean, there's a baked-in response here because if the Cardinals lose, there's going to be very uncomfortable conversations happening Monday morning. Like, very uncomfortable. And it's not to say that the Cardinals should win this game. Like, we're way past the Uncle Ricoing of this when they started 7-0 last year. Like, I don't care if you can throw a football over a mountain at this point. You got to go across the country, beat a good defense, go to 2-2, and if they get some help from the 49ers on Monday night, they could be tied for first in the NFC West after one of the worst starts we've seen, from second one to the last second of the games through 3 weeks. I think the Cardinals will win. The over-under is 43. I can't find 43 points with these two teams.
Oh,
I can't find it. I think the Cardinals will win. I think it'll be like 17-13. It's going to be ugly. And yeah, but I'm not confident in that. Like if Carolina wins, I'll be like, how they win is almost as important as if they win from a Cardinals perspective. And I think the Cardinals will win 17-13 in a kind of pounded out game.
Okay, before I get to mine, I got a couple questions for you about this, what you just said there too. And one of them is unrelated though. So we got a hurricane coming through here. I know you don't have to deal with that out west, which is nice, but you do have the oppressive heat basically year round. And I guess you don't do the whole daylight savings time thing. So I don't ever know what time it is out in Arizona. But hey, we have oppressive heat here too. We have the humidity, which is awful. And I've been to Arizona. I don't believe in the whole dry heat thing. Like when it's 110, it's 110, man, buddy. It's hot. If the rain is still here, how much does that change potentially the outcome for you as far as Arizona and what they want to do game plan wise offensively?
I still think they should be establishing the run first. Just because Kyler Murray just got a lot of money doesn't mean he has to throw the ball 45 times. Like, I'd much rather Kyler throw the ball 30 times than rush the ball 25 times. Like, James Conner, Darrell Williams, Eno Benjamin, they're a machine back there, even though James Conner is only averaging 3 yards per carry. They've got to establish the run, rain, shine, hurricane, vacuum, whatever. So I think that the game plan should be that way anyways. And I think that it will intensify if there's inclement weather, like it seems like there will be. I just hope that it's not, them playing in a swimming pool like it was in Chicago when they didn't remember to put filters in or whatever, drains under the field in that game against San Francisco.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It shouldn't be an issue here in Carolina. I think most of the rain is supposed to come Friday and Saturday. Might still be a little wet. They have an MLS game the night before, and it's field turf here in Charlotte, where they have to have the NFL lines also painted on. So that's going to be goofy looking for Saturday for the MLS game, but then those yellow lines will be off as far as the MLS soccer field goes. So the field should be fine. The good thing is they don't play on grass, at least for this situation. Most people would rather them still play on grass, especially the players. And we saw what just happened up in New York with Sterling Shepard and all the numbers that come out about those kind of injuries. But before I get that, my second question, because I think it kind of goes hand in hand with Carolina. I think the Panthers will win this game. I don't have a score prediction because I'm a coward. And also, I don't really know. I hate that they're like, hey, give us a score predictions. Like, I don't know. I think the Panthers will win. I think it's like the line's like 1.5 over at BetOnline with Carolina. Our friends over at BetOnline, of course. With Carolina, I think favored at home. So it's a pick 'em. And I look at just the Cardinals defense. You talk about they've been better last 6 quarters. I think they can be had. I'm expecting Christian McCaffrey, barring that he's actually healthy enough to play, to have
start him in DFS,
right.
Start him everywhere.
I'm expecting him to have another big afternoon running the football, and they still need to be committed to him. And at some point in time, that you got to imagine DJ Moore is going to be a big part of this offense, and it could be this week. And just look at what Arizona has offensively, like as far as like playmakers, like y'all have been banged up on the wide receiver core. Like in Carolina, for the most part, outside of Dante Jackson, that secondary is healthy. They have not been great getting after the passer so far this year. That the team speed on defense, I think, will be good enough, and they've dominated this Cardinals team. Like the past 2 years, Carolina has not been very good, especially 2020. Arizona is still trying to come up as well. And then last year, Cardinals a playoff team. Panthers lost 9 straight games after they beat Arizona. So they have not been good, but yet they found a way to beat the Arizona Cardinals. So I think they get to 2-2, and that further stems the tide of all the talk about firing Matt Rule. And you talked about it. The Cardinals go 1-3. It's going to be a tough conversation there, and it's going to be a tough conversation for me as well on Monday. Like, I don't know how you felt, but I was relieved to sit here on Sunday afternoon recording Monday's episode and not have to talk about, oh, do we fire the coach now? Like, how much longer does the coach last? Like, it feels like for the loser of our game, we're going to be having very similar conversations as far as like the head coach and how much longer before the guillotine falls on his head and he's out of town.
Yeah, these two are jockeying for position on first head coach fired. They're always right up towards the top. Mike McCarthy's always there because he's coaching the Cowboys, but it's Matt Rule and it's been Cliff. And the interesting part is, like, I don't think it's going to be Cliff. If somebody were to get fired midseason, it's going to be Vance Joseph, because that's how Steve Keim set up this self-fulfilling prophecy of overload the offense, negate any sort of real talent on the defense that you bring in. You have your scapegoat. It's not going to be Cliff. It'll be Vance. And I've been calling this since the beginning of training camp. I'm like, or the beginning of the offseason. Like, this is going to happen if the Cardinals regress. It's not going to be Cliff, because Bidwell is too egomaniacal is the wrong word. He's too out of touch to understand what the ramifications are of a 5-year contract extension after seeing what's happened unceremoniously the last half of the last 2 seasons. So yeah, you're right. It's going to be weird. I'll probably DM you on Twitter and give you a pound and be like, good luck, bro, because one of us are not going to have a fun conversation on Monday.
Yeah, and I'll throw this one out here too. Well, I think Carolina's going to win. Who's the secondary coach here in Carolina now? It's Steve Wilks, your former head coach, who currently is suing the league and the Arizona Cardinals for Cliff Kingsbury basically being their head coach after being a failed college coach at Texas Tech and for only getting 1 year and being what you're saying Vance Joseph would be. The black man scapegoat, as I like to call it. Like, you always get an opportunity if you're head coach to fire your coordinators. Matt Rule had that opportunity last year when he got rid of Joe Brady. This will be Cliff Kingsbury's opportunity. But Steve Wilks, I know he's not calling the plays, but he's going to have those boys ready. They're going to go win one for old man Wilks. They'll get revenge against the team and the owner who he feels like he was done wrong by. And I mean, it's really hard to argue against that. Like, I wasn't there, but 1 year, one and done with Josh Rosen as quarterback. Didn't really feel like he was set up for success that season. But again, you and your listeners have way more insight on how those things went down. But yeah, it could be awkward conversations for the two of us, depending on who wins this game on Sunday. And I'm certainly hoping I don't have to sit here and again have to try and calm the locals down about we want Matt Rule's head.
I'm a procrastinator. Let's just take a tie. Let's go 17-17 and move on the hell to next week. Just give me a tie. Give me that MLS energy from Saturday night. Just give me that tie. Give me that. Just come on. Like, that would be the ideal scenario, right? For both of us.
What do we even say if they tie? What is the conversation? Like, what?
I don't know.
Well, in the MLS game, they're playing like Philadelphia, who's like the top team in MLS apparently. So they're probably going to get drubbed. So it won't be any MLS energy. But damn, I really hope there's not a tie, because that would just like be such a waste of a Sunday. It's like, oh, let's sit here and watch this game. Oh, no one wins. I reward you no points, sir.
And may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh my God. All right. It's been fun, Alex. Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. I'm Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. He's Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. Check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Store, I think Stitcher, whatever the hell it's on. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Also on YouTube, Locked On Panthers, Locked On Cardinals. Follow me on Twitter. What's your Twitter? Alex, I'm at Julian Council. You are at
Clancy's Corner.
So go follow him on Twitter, Panther fans, and go give them hell once they lose on Sunday. Or actually, don't do that. Be like a genuine human being. Don't be crazy. Give them the Southern hospitality after Sunday afternoon's game. But again, check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out on YouTube. And for my listeners, tomorrow is Friday, so a weekly Friday mailbag. At me, DM me on Twitter to get your mailbag questions in. That's going to wrap it up here for this edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Cardinals. Everyone enjoy your weekend. Stay dry if you're here in the Carolinas, and we will talk to you guys on Sunday or Monday, I guess, and also tomorrow. Goodbye.